Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, host of the Sunday Night BattleCry. I'm really happy to be here with you guys again. It means I'm at home, which is my favorite place to be, surrounded by friends, family, and of course the Great Danes. Winston and Levi are here. Oh, Winston's right back there in bed. Levi's out there somewhere wandering around causing trouble. We have to talk about the election, of course, but I want to start with our call to action. Call to action this week is celebrate. That's right. Have a good time. Let your hair down. If you're like me, not a lot of hair to let down, but maybe take the hat off. Party, enjoy yourself, be excited that the country is pulled back from the precipice of disaster. But don't get carried away. Always be safe, and then plan your next action steps. Now is not the time to rest. Why do I say that? Normally you get a big victory, you've fought a long, hard fight. Maybe that's the time to take some time off. I say that because we have momentum right now. The people who love liberty, the people who love freedom, the people who love our flag, who love our military, the people who believe in law and order and justice and freedom. These people are now, some of them are going to be in charge, but we need them in the fight. We need you in the fight. See, if we let our guard down now, I guarantee you the left is going to swing back and we're going to take some serious blows. And we don't want that. Right now, when you have momentum, that's the time to double and triple down. That's the time to be asking yourself, okay, maybe people who think like me won this election. What do I do to support them now that we're going to move forward? What do I do out in the field? What can I do in my community? Maybe you had people who won the local school board races that you really like. How are you going to support them now? Don't send them off to the school board to face the wolves by themselves. You need to be there with them. You need to be the troops. So contact them, ask them, like, how can I help? What can I do to make you more effective in your job? Are there school board meetings? What is there that I can show up at? Do the same thing in your state legislatures. If you helped work for people, and COS helped elect a lot of people all over the country, contact the winners, congratulate them, thank them for running, and ask them if there's anything you can do to help. Simple thing. Can I pray for you and your family? You're going to do something really difficult now. I'm really proud of you. We're glad to have excited you. How can we help you? Build those relationships right now. If you wait to session to build relationships with legislators, they're so busy. They're so underwater come January when they get in session. They don't have any time to breathe or eat, let alone to chat with you. It's very hard for them. If you reach out now, especially if you're some of the first, you'll be remembered. You'll build a relationship. This is why I'm telling you, plan your action steps now. If you've never really been involved in Convention of States, go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, volunteer. Look, this is a chance to say, next year, the end of this year, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to be ready to go for next year. Plan those action steps now. Don't let the new year come upon you and you're not already in action. We got a great victory. We preserve liberty. I think things are looking really good around the world. And so let's just make sure that we're all in action. I want to talk specifically, of course, about the election. Let's look back and look at the top lines, and then let's see what's underneath. Top line, of course, President Donald Trump, now President-elect Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, soon to be the 47th president of the United States. That's utterly incredible in and of itself. Right? There was one president prior to President Trump that had been elected and then out of office and then reelected. That was Grover Cleveland. He was the only one. That would have been a trivia question, right? Maybe on Jeopardy. Who's the only president to serve non-consecutive terms? That would have been Grover Cleveland. Now it's Donald J. Trump. And what an incredible victory and comeback story it is. I would argue the greatest comeback story in modern American history, not just political comeback story, but any comeback story. This man has taken more abuse than anybody I've ever seen in my life. The slander, the viciousness, the accusations of being a Nazi, a racist, a misogynist, an Islamophobe, whatever, name the term, the the phobe, all of it. The litigation. I think there were over 37 litigations against him. Who could stand against that? I couldn't stand against that. I don't have his millions of dollars. I can't even tell you I have his resiliency, the way that he stood, the way that he never lost his balance, never lost his hope, kept fighting, kept going. Like, he didn't disappear and then come back. He never went away. And it is a truly incredible story of courage and strength and fortitude. They tried to kill him twice. he actually was shot. I want you to think about that. And then went back to Butler, Pennsylvania to do the rally once again to prove he's not afraid, he's not going away. And he built a coalition that is something we have literally never seen before. It was talked about how Reagan had a big tent. This makes Reagan's tent look like a little pup tent. And I say that with no disrespect to Ronald Reagan, one of my all-time favorite presidents. I got to say, for me, honestly, Trump has now surpassed him as a president for what he's accomplished. It's incredible. The largest proportion of the black vote, I don't know if it's in history, but certainly for a very long time, the largest proportion of the black male vote in history, right? In modern history, I think that's going to end up between 26 and 30%. The largest portion of the Hispanic vote in modern history, certainly since George Bush. And if you look at the way it came out in Texas, in the most Hispanic county, I believe in the United States of America, is down on the border. County, I think it's 96% Hispanic. He won an outright majority down there. Trump won a majority in all but 2 of the border counties in Texas. And when you look at the swings in those counties, you're talking electoral swings 20, 30, 40 points. Absolutely incredible results. Here's one of my favorites. Young people, 18 to 34, new highs among 18 to 34-year-olds, especially among young men. Incredible, amazing results. Now, I'm going to say something people may not like. Some people might be offended. Some women might be offended by this. If you look at voting trends, women follow men. So when we say, oh, you got all these women who didn't like Donald Trump, they tend to follow men over time. I'm not saying follow men like every woman votes like a man or even votes like her husband, contrary to what Kamala Harris wanted you to do, to lie to your husbands. But over time, these trends work out where the female electorate tends to, over time, follow the male electorate. So this bodes well for the future of conservatism. Let's talk about J.D. Vance, our vice president-elect. A lot of people questioned that pick. I think JD has proven himself. He's walked into the lion's den over and over, done every left-wing media that asked him, I believe, and did long-form interviews. And he comported himself as well as I've ever seen anybody going into the lion's den of leftist media. And I think he's just turned out to be a great pick. He also has a solid governing philosophy. I mean, he's thought about these things. He understands the issue. He's very smart. I've mentioned this book before, Regime Change by Patrick Deneen. If you haven't read it, you want to know where J.D. Vance is coming from, he read it and he ascribes to most of it, as do I. And so I think you'll get a good handle. I think he's the standard bearer for the Republican Party going forward. I understand that a lot of people love Ron DeSantis, and I do believe Ron DeSantis is the greatest modern governor in the United States of America. But I think at this point on the national political stage, he's been surpassed by J.D. Vance. I think J.D. Vance is the future of the Republican Party. He's young, 40 years old. He's got a beautiful, brilliant wife who is a corporate litigator. He always says she's smarter than him. If that's true, he's really smart. So she's really, really smart. I love seeing that good-looking young family. They tried to paint him as weird. This is about the most normal guy I've ever seen. If you watched his interview on Rogan, you saw that. You saw how smart he is, how he can pivot, how he can talk. But he sounds like a regular guy, which is not surprising because he grew up in Appalachia, grew up in a very poor family, made something out of himself. Incredible life story. So I think that's one of the major stories of this election, not just Trump, but J.D. Vance. Now, if you look at what happened underneath that stuff, underneath the demographics, what the results were in the Senate, the Republicans have a good majority in the Senate. Minimum, I think, at this point of 53 seats. Could go as high as maybe 54. There's some question out in Nevada, potential recount going on out in Nevada. So we'll see what happens there. I think McCormick has taken Pennsylvania. I know Moreno took Ohio. So the Republicans are going to have not a huge majority, but a significant majority. And I think it's even bigger than the majority. When you're in the majority and you have a president that's this dynamic and this sort of media overwhelming, this outsized of a figure, I think you're going to see the Senate go along with him. There's going to be a fight for Senate leadership. Thune, Cornyn, and Rick Scott out of Florida. Personally, out of those, I would choose Rick Scott. I actually think it's going to end up being John Thune. And I'm not a huge Thune fan. I think he's too moderate and too soft for me. But I would say, I think with President Trump in office, he's going to follow Trump's lead. I think you're going to see good things out of the Senate. Now let's move over to the House. The House, it looks like Republicans have maintained a majority in the House, but it's going to be a slim majority. And when I say slim, man, I mean really slim. Like it's going to be 7 to 9 seats maximum. And that is a very slim majority in a body of that size. That's going to be hard for Mike Johnson. But I think you have the same factor, which is this idea that you have a very strong president who was elected on a very strong mandate. I think most of the members of Congress are going to stand with him. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Thomas Massie tends to be kind of a rogue vote in the House. I have a feeling Massie, it sounds like, is going to be elevated to be Secretary of Agriculture. That's an incredible pick. By the way, I don't always like Thomas Massie, but him as Secretary of Agriculture, I absolutely love that. He's going to try and break up the big corporate farming interests that aren't in the interest of the American people. I think he's going to do away with a lot of farm subsidies. I understand that's going to be hard for some farmers. It's going to require adjustment. I expect that he'll do that gently and out over time so that farmers don't have too much pain. But we do need to get away from a subsidized market and back to a free market. I think he's going to do away with subsidized imports into the United States to make sure that we have a free and fair farming market here in the United States and that we actually do protect our own markets. I have a lot of faith in him as Secretary of Agriculture. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is going to end up in the administration somewhere. I don't know where he ends up. We know Elon is going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, as they call it. Going to be really interesting to see how he operates inside of government. We know what he did at X. He came into X, formerly Twitter, cut 80% of the workforce, dramatically slashed their cost structure, got rid of all the cappuccino bars and the massage rooms and all that stuff. And now he has a lean, mean operating company that is now the largest news platform in the world on 20% of the staff. He says he's going to do that to the federal government. If they give him the power, if he gets the latitude from the president, he's going to have to deal with a bunch of litigation from the left, I'm sure. But I think things are going to be a lot better. Maybe Vivek works with Elon because I know Vivek's a government efficiency guy too. By the way, if you haven't read Vivek's book called Truths, I highly recommend that book. It goes through and lays out the things that he believes are undeniably true that we have to assert and we have to live by. And it starts, I'm happy to say, with God is real. There is a God. And so I think it's a great book. It'll tell you where he's coming from. You're going to have a good idea of what's going to happen in this administration because Trump talks about it a lot. Vivek's talked about it a lot. Elon's talked about it a lot. All their supporters. I think we're going to see a much more aggressive administration. Now, when I say we're going to see aggressive administration, there's a lot of discussion about whether the right, whether the administration, whether Congress should seek revenge and retribution for the things that the left has done to people like us over the last 4 years. And I want to be clear on my position on this. Do I think we should seek revenge? No. Revenge meaning just I'm going to go out and get people however I can to get even. I don't believe in that. I believe vengeance belongs to God. That's not for us. That's not the way that we should behave as Christians or conservatives. Do I think we should get retribution? I think that's a different thing. And I think just retribution is correct. When people have done bad things, they should be forced to pay for those bad things. And so that's not revenge. That's retribution for things actually done. And I think we should go out there. And I think what we should really seek, if you want the simplest word to explain it all, is justice. There should be justice. For those who cheated, the cheating should be exposed, and those people should go to jail if they actually cheated in elections. In regard to weaponizing the judicial system and the law enforcement system against conservatives, there should be retribution for that. Those people should be investigated. They should be exposed. They should lose licenses. They should lose their livelihoods. And to the extent it makes sense under the law, again, remember, we are law and order people, they should be prosecuted. Some people are going to have to go to jail. The people who lied to win elections, absolutely, that should be exposed. All the documents should come out. The J6 committee, that should be made completely public. Everything they ever did, every document they ever found, every moment of footage from J6 should be made public. And then there should be a reconciliation. We need essentially a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We need to know exactly what happened, and the people who are responsible for the abuses need to be called to account. And so again, I don't consider any of this revenge. I consider all of it to be justice. and justice must be done. If we're to have a law and order country, then people who abuse law and order need to pay the price. And that means, I think, also, to the extent it's still within statute of limitations, when you have BLM rioters, people who destroyed, looted, mobbed, did violence, to the extent that those things are within statutes of limitation and they're federal crimes, I think the DOJ should go after those people with equal fervor to which the DOJ went after people who just peacefully protested at the United States Capitol. Look, and I want to be clear, if people did violence, if people broke things, they should be prosecuted for that. But when doors were thrown open by law enforcement officers and people walked in, took some pictures and left, those people should not have ever been prosecuted, and those people should be pardoned by President Trump. And I believe we're going to see whole-scale pardons. There's been a question about whether President Trump should pardon or at least commute the sentence of Hunter Biden. And my answer to that is, I don't think it's going to be necessary, because I think Joe Biden's going to pardon him or commute a sentence on the way out of office. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't be in favor of a commutation of sentence, provided that Hunter Biden comes clean and tells the entire American public on the record exactly what happened. Because right now he's just lied about it. He does not deserve a commutation or a pardon. But if he's willing to sit down on camera and spill the beans on exactly what happened, what he did, what his father did, what his family did, I wouldn't have a problem for that. Ask for forgiveness and repent, tell exactly what you did, and then I wouldn't have a problem with a pardon or a commutation in exchange for that. I think it would heal our country in many different ways, and I think that would be a fair deal. So that's my look at that. Let's look now specifically at the left-wing media reaction, sort of generally speaking. I guess you could use the word unhinged, lunatic fringe, crazy, nutty. I mean, it's been absolutely unbelievable how they've reacted. I could go through a whole bunch of their reactions. I'm not going to, because I assume you have. In fact, it's been a guilty pleasure of mine to watch clips of left-wing media, to watch clips of left-wing social media. They're crazy. And I want you to remember, a mere 4 years ago, Joe Biden won the election against Donald Trump, and there was not the equivalent reaction on the right. I was bummed out. I thought it was bad for the country. I didn't get on social media and weep and scream and wail and threaten. Not the kind of stuff that you see in left-wing social media or in left-wing mainstream media right now. I mean, these people are going crazy. They're losing their absolute minds. I mean, it is incredible the way they behave. And I think what you can see is a broad scale mass psychosis. People have written about this. The left is psychotic in the United States of America, broadly written. Not everybody, of course, not all left-wingers are psychotic, but there's enough that you can see online that you would never see the equivalent from the right, by the way, from conservatives, from Republicans. Doesn't mean conservatives and Republicans don't behave poorly sometimes, but you would never see this sort of mass adoption of hysteria. You know, my favorite one out there, again, I'm not going to show the video and I talk about it. Apparently there's something called the 4B movement among women. The B stands for some word in South Korean. This movement comes from South Korea originally, some fringe movement over there. They say that these are women, leftist women, who say they are swearing off dating, marriage, men, and sex. Okay. Is that a bad thing? These are mostly unmarried women swearing off men, dating, marriage, and sex. So that means, from my perspective as a conservative Christian, they're not going to have premarital sex. They're not going to do it unprotected. So that means they're not going to have abortions. Man, next thing you know, these women will say they're going to start going to church. President Trump's not even in office yet. And look at all the good that's happening. He is reforming the moral composition of our society just by being elected. It's absolutely incredible. By the way, we should recount what's going on around the world today. It's happening pretty much every day. Great stuff, because Donald Trump was elected. He's not even president yet. The election hasn't been certified. We haven't had an inauguration, and great things are happening all the world, or around the world. I don't know if you saw this or you're collecting these ideas in your mind. Hamas called for an end to the war. Oh, this is the first time they've done that. That's absolutely incredible. He's not president yet. He just got elected, right? That's an incredible thing. You have President Putin of Russia calling for peace between Russia and Ukraine. Oh, That hadn't happened before. I saw this week on Friday that the Qataris who house the Hamas leadership, what's left of it, are kicking them out of Qatar. That's right. They've been there. They've been living literally like kings in Qatar, and now they're being kicked out. And by the way, that Hamas leadership says, our only chance for survival is to stay here in Qatar, and they're being kicked out. President Trump isn't even president yet. I mean, it's incredible what's happening. Have you followed the stock markets? Maybe you have a retirement plan. The stock market is through the roof. It's absolutely incredible. All the different markets are through the roof. Cryptocurrency is through the roof. We have a 1/4 point reduction in the interest rate. Everything is going better. Fuel prices are down, right? Because that's based on futures. People know what's going to happen. The world is a much better place because Donald Trump was elected the 47th president of the United States of America. I mean, he could stop right now and not even take office, and he's already accomplished incredible things. So I think we have a good 4 years to look forward to. There's a lot of work still to do. I'll talk about that towards the end from a convention of states perspective. I don't know if you brought yourself to watch Kamala's concession speech. She should have given it the night of the election. Very classless that she didn't. She did it the next day. And she talked about a peaceful transition of power and how important that is. Except, aren't we Nazis? Didn't she call Donald Trump a fascist and a totalitarian who wanted to be a dictator? Did Kamala really just say that she is committed to a peaceful transition of power to Nazi fascist dictators? That's weird. And it's not just people on the right who are calling this out. Either she was lying before the election, calling him a Nazi fascist dictator, or I don't know what's going on right now. There is a podcaster in the Black community who, Charlemagne the podcaster, I won't call him what he calls himself because he calls himself a god. But Charlemagne the podcaster asks the right question. You got to watch this clip.
So I'm glad everybody's having a sense of optimism because the reality is we have no choice because we're here now. Donald J. Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States of America, like it or not. And we all hope for the best for this country. That's all we can do. But don't y'all find it strange that now that he's won, they're not calling him a threat to democracy? They're not calling him a fascist. I mean, damn, Monday.
They're not calling him anything.
They can't. On Monday, they was just calling him that. I would think that, if you really believe that, then somebody's speech would be about how America effed up and how things are about to be really bad.
Leaving that man
He's
alone.
the most powerful man in the world now.
Well, it just makes you wonder how much of it did they really believe or how much of it was just politics.
Yeah, look, if you were Kamala Harris and you actually believe you were turning power over to Hitler, to the Nazis, would you have given the speech she gave? Of course not. Even if you were willing to turn over power, you would have said this is an incredibly dark day in American history. The fascists, the Nazis, the totalitarians are taking control, and I call on all people to resist. That's what I would do. And if you really believe he was a fascist, Nazi, totalitarian, probably the jackbooted thugs will show up to take her away for saying something like that. But she's already said plenty they're going to take her away for if she really believes it, because she doesn't believe it. Because nobody on the left believes this stuff. It's all a big lie. It's all a big ruse. It's all a big campaign to try to scare people away from voting for Donald Trump. And it didn't work. And it's never going to work again. This mainstream media narrative has been exploded, and trying to vilify everybody around you and force them to vote for you doesn't work. Right. And if you want to see an honest take on this, a guy that I don't love in the sense that none of my politics align with him, but you got to watch what Van Jones says about the Democrats' electoral strategy, because I think he's right on.
Progressives have a politics that says all white people are racist, all men are toxic, and all billionaires are evil. It's kind of hard to keep them on your side. And so we might want to think about, if you're chasing people out of the party, you can't be mad when they leave. And maybe if we had a different politics, we actually said dignity for everybody, everybody's respected, and we need you, more people might stay.
You think? Look, I mean, this election, it proves what he's saying there. That is a very succinct, very on-point analysis of what happened in this election. What have they been saying about men for years now, right? Toxic masculinity. You're all bad. If you're a regular dude, if you like guns, if you lift weights, if you have a beard, if you're a manly guy, if you like sports, if you like UFC, well, you're just a toxic male. Why would you vote for people who say that about you? You wouldn't, of course, you never, ever would. And millions of them didn't, right? They lost the male vote. If you say to all white people, hey, you're all a bunch of irredeemable racists, why would you vote for people who say that about you? You're irredeemable. I mean, if you saw Matt Walsh's movie, Am I Racist? What they said is it's not only are you racist, but you can't help being a racist and you will always be a racist because you're white. Why would you vote for people who say that about you? You wouldn't, and they didn't in droves. White women who were supposed to be the saving grace of the Democrat Party, the majority of them voted for Donald Trump. Young people, the Democrats think they own the young person's vote, but they listen to people like J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump on Joe Rogan's podcast, a podcast that Kamala Harris refused to participate in. The largest podcast audience in the world. She had a chance to sit down with him, explain her policies. She didn't, in my opinion, because, well, she can't. That's the reason why. But because she lost all those people that she had a chance at, right? She lost the people who are that audience, primarily young men who didn't vote for her because she's not speaking to the American people. It's not just her, by the way, it's the whole party. It's transgender ideology. It's all the extreme LGBTQIA hashtag plus minus ellipsis, whatever stuff, the alphabet soup stuff that most Americans think is ridiculous. It's pronouns. I'm a he, him after my name. Not like people, regular, normal people don't like that stuff. And they don't want to be berated because they don't like that stuff. It's traditional family values. It's saying men and women are men and women. It's keeping men out of women's sports. These are things that most people just agree with. By the way, it's a secure border too. The vast majority of Americans want a secure border, and they know that Democrats are for open borders, and it scares them. And so people voted against them. But they say that you and me, if we're for a secure border, we're racist and we're xenophobe. Why would you vote for people who call you a racist and xenophobe and can't recognize the problems you're having in your life? Eggs have doubled, butter has doubled, gasoline prices are up, mortgage rates are up, houses are unaffordable, all of this stuff, and they mock us for it and they attack us for it because we complain about those things and we're just out of touch. We should just go get better jobs or whatever. We should go get a college education so we can be indoctrinated. No, we're not going to do it. And people reacted against this stuff. And I think this is important. An entire movement has been born. When you see Donald Trump side by side with Tulsi Gabbard, with JFK, with Vivek, with J.D. Vance, with people who weren't on the stage like Peter Thiel, with Dana White from the UFC, this is an incredible coalition of people. They're not, by the way, much as you or I might want them to be, they're not all rock-ribbed conservatives. This is a bigger tent. And this is the Republican way moving forward. This is super important to understand. And it doesn't mean we're all going to agree. And this is part of being Republican. We're not all going to agree. We should be willing to fight for our own party positions within the party, come what may. And this is why Donald Trump won. And this is why he has a mandate. He not only won the Electoral College by a large margin, he won the popular vote. That's usually their big complaint. It's the first time Republicans have won the popular vote since 2004. That's incredible. 20 years. And Donald Trump wins the popular vote. He has remade the party, whether you like it or not. I personally absolutely love it. I think things look good for the country. I think it's already going well for the country. I feel better waking up the day after that election. I only slept 4 hours election eve, and I was charged up and ready to go the next day. And I am all in right now. All right, look, if you want to get gear, like cool gear, like we have, like this hat. Isn't this cool? It says America is worth fighting for. I love the red, white, and blue. Love the fact that it's got the Convention States logo on the side. I like the mesh. It's too hot when I wear hats that don't have mesh. I love this new hat. You can get that. Go to article5outfitters.com. A lot of other new cool stuff there. And I've seen a bunch of designs coming down the pike. Article 5, the 5 is a V. Article5outfitters.com. Go there, get your stuff. Okay, here we go. Ask Mark anything. If you want to put in questions, and I would really appreciate it if you put in questions, go to conventionofstates.com/ask Mark. First is from Randy Kopp. Do you think President Trump will be able to end the wars? He already is. Hamas is already asking for peace. Putin is already asking for peace. Absolutely, he will be able to end the wars. He's going to get us out of a lot of these foreign entanglements. Importantly, he's going to settle the wars in a way that serves U.S. interests. And I think that's really important. The way he's going to settle the war in Israel, he's going to let Israel finish it. And he's going to give them everything they need to finish that war, to secure their own border, to secure their own country, America's primary ally in the Middle East. By the way, Saudis are in support of that and lots of the other nations there. The Middle East is going to be much better once Israel finishes with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the regime in Iran. Kurt Minson says, generally speaking, am I justified to expect non-English speakers in the U.S. to learn English? You're not only justified, that is absolutely mandatory, Kurt, among non-English speakers, because if they're going to assimilate in our culture, they got to speak English. Now, I get asked about this a lot because we have literature in convention of states in Spanish. And so I get asked to explain why that is. I'm an English first guy. Like, I think our forms should be printed in English. I think our offices should run in English, unless they're specifically designed to deal with brand new immigrants. I think all these offices should be English only. That's the way our government should run. English is our language. Here's my caveat. This is why we have literature printed in Spanish. And we're going to ultimately have our website in Spanish as well. Because when you're talking about very complicated subjects with people who don't speak the language as a native, it's hard. Like, you can get along, you can live a completely productive and good life in the United States of America speaking English, but not having a sophisticated enough reading understanding of the English language to do political science, to do political history. This is true. Ask anybody who knows foreign languages, who knows how enough to be fluent to get along in a foreign language, and then ask them what happens if they go try to learn physics in that foreign language, right? Or if they go try and study philosophy in that. It's very hard because they're wired, their brain, the way they learned everything speaks in their native language, speaks in English if you're in a foreign country. And so I think if you want to bring people in on relatively complex problems and discussions like political philosophy, political history, it's good to speak to them in their native language if you can. If you can't speak English, you shouldn't be able to vote in America. You shouldn't be able to drive a car in America. All right, that's all I've got for this week. I just want to say to you guys, God bless you. Thanks for being in the fight. By the way, I know you voted. I can see your little sticker you're still wearing. You had it tattooed on your wrist or something. You voted. Proud of you for voting. Proud of you for doing what it takes to save the country. Our work is just getting started. Go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition. More importantly, go to the Take Action page and volunteer. And I'm going to see you out in the field soon. God bless.